Alright, we are back. One of the most requested guys on Channel 9, Bill Hill. You probably don't need an introduction, or I'll let you introduce yourself.
My name is Bill Hill. I've been at Microsoft for about 13 years. Just over 13 years. 13 and a half years actually, didn't time fly? But I came to Microsoft in 1995 because I believed we're in the middle of this huge transition from reading on paper to reading on the screen, and that Microsoft was the one company in the world most likely to be able to help drive that transition because of the installed base and influence of Windows and Office, and so that's why I came, and that's really what I've been doing the whole time. I've moved around from group to group. I started running the Microsoft Typography group. I went to the Electronic Books team, where I helped to invent ClearType. I went from there to setting up a group called Advanced Reading Technologies, which still exists and is part of the Windows. Then, I don't know, I guess about 18 months or so ago I came to join the Internet Explorer team, because I believe that the Internet is the place where readability most needs to get fixed. Electronic books are fine, but reading needs to happen on the web, and reading on the web is horrible today. It's slightly better than it was 15 years ago, but not nearly as good as it could be. And so that's why I'm in the Internet Explorer team. And
may I ask you a question?
So we have Christian,
Hey,
Little Guru,
I'm
here
back.
too.
And my question is, like you said now that reading has gotten better on the web, but how do you why can you say that? Like, what's your?
It's gotten slightly better on the web, and the
Is it gotten worse because of, like, we have now high resolution displays and like
no, high resolution displays will actually help a lot. The problem is that we're beginning to get high resolution displays, but we haven't really figured out that means a fundamental change in everything that we do. Way back since the early days of graphical user interface, from the Mac and Windows 1.0, we assumed that resolution of displays would be about 96 pixels per inch. And you just don't realise how fundamentally everything is built on top of that assumption. And then the problem, right? It wasn't a problem, 15, 20 years ago, when most screens were somewhere between 72 and 96 ppi. But as soon as we started to get screens that were higher resolution, things started to break. This Dell laptop I have here, it has 147 ppi display. I've had that laptop for 10 years.
Okay.
But it's very difficult to run Windows and the applications at 147 ppi because of the underlying assumptions that everything is
and then
96.
everything is like misaligned, right?
Oh, not only that, but it's much more fundamental than that. If you're building user interface and you're building dialog boxes, and you make a dialog box window that's a certain size that assumes it's running at 96 ppi, then when you run it on a higher resolution display, it could be very much smaller. It could be very, very much smaller. This display back here is an IBM display that I've again had for about 10 years. It's 204 pixels per inch. If you take a window that was designed for user interface at 96 ppi and put it on there, it's a quarter of the size. However, what's happened is that the text that's supposed to fit in it has scaled properly.
Oops.
Right? So the text remains the same size, but the window is now a quarter of the size it was, so it's totally broken.
Yeah.
And that's a great illustration of the kind of issues that happen. So in any application that you build that has fixed pixel dimensions in it, is going to have problems. And the web is totally built on the assumption that everything's at 96 ppi. And you see that when you go into a website with a high resolution laptop.
Yeah.
And how broken it is.
Yeah, it is indeed.
So I've been saying this for many years, and we're finally beginning to get there, you know. I was saying this, I mean, Dell approached me about, I guess about 8 years ago, 9 years ago. They wanted to build a higher resolution laptop, higher than 147, you know, so I figured out how to get even XP working really well on this machine. And Office has done a fantastic job. Office has been pretty much resolution independent since Office 2003. You throw up Word, PowerPoint, Excel, any of the Office apps on a high resolution display and they work great. What that means is that on this display, which is 3840 pixels by 2400, I can throw up 2 pages of a Word document side by side at actual size with a reading quality that's probably better than most paper.
Well,
but the issues like do like the dialog boxes and stuff like scale in Word, or is it more like the
They
text?
are all resolution independent
Really?
inside Office. Yep, it's
I don't know. I didn't know that.
It's fantastic. It is the best behaved set of apps I've ever seen on high resolution. It's wonderful. It really is fantastic. I was so pleased when I found it. You know, one thing I did have to do inside Office was I had to go in and turn on large icons. That was the only thing I had to do. And otherwise, everything else just worked. It was great.
so applications are one thing, but you're talking about the internet Wild West. That
Yep.
are you thinking you tame it, or is it a browser problem? Is it compliance, or how do you work in a world where only
It's a compliance and authoring problem.
Okay.
You can do some things to mitigate in the browser. For example, you can use zooming and things like that, but these are not really the right way to go. See, the problem is, and you know, I keep harping, but every time I talk on Channel 9, I keep saying the same thing. We think we're so civilized, but we're not. We're Homo sapiens version 1.0. We have a perception system that works in a certain way. The driving factor to all of reading is the size of the foveal area in the human retina, which is 0.2 of a millimeter across and has 1.5 degrees of visual arc. What that means is that human beings need to read text, not want, but need to read text at sizes that begin at 9 point, get slightly better at 10, better still at 11, drop off very slightly at 12, and drop off even more the higher above that you go. So you can't just scale the text and make it bigger. So we need to have text at those sizes. The other interesting thing about that is that measurement is an absolute measurement. You know, a point is a printer's measure. It's a 72nd of an inch. So 9 point text is an 1/8 of an inch high, right?
Yeah, that's true.
The pixel is a completely relative dimension, because if your pixel is on a 88 ppi display, it's 1/88 of an inch. If it's on a 204 ppi display, it's 204th of an inch.
Right.
So there's that aspect, just the most fundamental building block of what you see, the pixel, is a relative unit of measurement, not an absolute. And we have to make it an absolute one.
And WPF, my understanding, is resolution independent as well. And some of the things that they're adding.
WPF has done a fantastic job doing that as well. And I worked actually in the WPF team. I was part of that whole WPF effort, and that was part of what I kept pounding on, was making sure that we created a resolution independent system that would allow text to be displayed in real sizes, not relative sizes, but real sizes that we knew. You know, the thing about the web is there are all these axes of wildness, right?
Right.
One axis of wildness is the pixel. You don't know what size the pixel is. Another axis of wildness is the display. You don't know whether somebody's going to read on a laptop or a large desktop display like that, or on one of these guys, you know. a cell phone.